Welcome back, friends. Thanks for sticking with us. We just learned about the emotional aspects of puberty, and now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the physical changes that may come with puberty. I've moved over to our LCMC Health Wellness Lounge because we're about to have a very important conversation with our next guest. Please help me welcome Ms. Debbie Regan. She's a parent educator with the Parenting Center. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And it's such an important conversation because, let's be honest, we're all going to go through it. We've all been through it, but I'm so curious. You know, I was talking to our last guest and she was talking about this early onset of puberty as early as 6 years old, but that's because of emotional factors, technology, all of that. But when it comes from a scientific area, right, what age do we kind of start to see puberty in girls?
It can start as early as 8 or 9, and it can start as late as 15 or 16. So it has, you know, there's a lot of variables there.
But and what are some of those variables?
Diet, nutrition, genetics, race, ethnicity. There's a lot of things that play into that. Some girls start earlier than others for a lot of different reasons.
And of course, a big reason why puberty happens is because of the hormonal changes.
Correct.
In women, it has to do with estrogen. But I'm so curious. Women actually go through puberty earlier than boys?
Yes, they start earlier. About 2 years earlier. And it's sort of a joke in my class. I say, you know, why does that happen? It's because boys are slower than girls and they try to catch up all their lives and they don't make it, but that's just that's not true.
That's hilarious. Well, listen, honestly, I believe women are smarter than men. Let's be honest here, full-fledged out. I was raised by a woman, hello, you know. And I think it's so interesting as well is that when it comes to the physical changes, right, there are some that are common, but there are some that maybe are not so common. Let's talk about some of the common ones that girls go through when going through puberty.
It's pretty predictable. You know, there's the stages of puberty. So we know that there's going to be breast changes. We know that there's pretty much head to toe, there's going to be changes. We know there's going to be hair changes. Oil glands are going to work over time. And so the hair is going to get oilier. It's going to change. The breasts are obviously going to change. And that's one of the things that we look at to see where we are in puberty, the stages of these breasts and where they are. So we know that certain things are going to happen. And in that midpoint of puberty, the breast looks like this, and that's when girls know where they are and sort of what's getting ready to happen there.
And of course, the menstrual cycle will start.
The start's in the middle of those stages. So when the breast looks like this, then about 80% of all girls will start having their period at that time.
Wow. And when does the puberty phase end for young girls?
Usually about 2 years after a girl starts menstruating, she's going to wrap it up, and then her body is going to be at its peak height and wrap up puberty basically at that. And it can be at any age. It might be 15, you know, but it could be earlier for some girls. Some girls are going to peak at age 9 or 10, and they're going to reach their full maturity level as far as the body goes at around 12 or 13.
And you know, I think it's so powerful about this conversation we're having right now. First, information. If you are raising a young girl, maybe you are not a girl yourself, so you're learning about these physical changes, but there are also some emotional changes that can happen. We're talking about hormones here. Tell us a little bit more about the emotions.
Ooh, there's a lot of emotions happening here. Basically, they're rewiring. I mean, and sometimes girls just feel like they're not themselves anymore. Their bodies are changing. They're being launched into puberty. They may not be ready for it physically, emotionally, but it's going to happen and they have no choice about it. And I usually say that your hormones are just, you know, swirling around, and you're just going to feel like some days you just want to fall apart and some days you're a mess. And that's what parents need to understand is, you know, they're just not the same kid because things are rewiring there. Their bodies are completely different than they were a year ago or 2 years ago.
But how do you suggest parents talk about this with their kids, right? Because let's be honest, there's a group of kids who they never communicated to their parents what they were going through. And the parents, do they just ask the questions? Do they wait for the children to come to them? But if they never come to them because they're uncomfortable, how can we make sure that the children are getting the correct information?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that parents need to understand is that they may not come to you and they're getting information from their friends or on the internet. So they need to come to you, and that's one of the things you could become more of a approachable parent to say, I went through puberty. It wasn't 100 years ago. And I know times have changed, but the human body hasn't changed.
Right.
And I get it. I understand physically what you're going through. Now, emotionally, we all handle things differently. So I do understand that sometimes you fall apart, and I do understand that sometimes you're a mess, you know, and that happens. It happens to all of us, but you're okay. And I promise you, we know that tacos are a mess and they fall apart, but we still love them.
Oh,
so
message!
Okay.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. And luckily, the Parenting Center has resources. You all have these classes monthly. Yours is called Growing Up with Our Girls, something
Growing
like
Up
that.
for Girls.
Growing Up for Girls.
Yeah. So
Tell
we
us
do
about
those
that.
once a month. It's a 2-hour class. Moms and daughters, or I say the word mom a whole lot. It's that significant person in their lives. Sometimes even dads take the role of mom. So we have dads come to the class sometimes in that position, or aunts or grandmothers or big sisters. You know, it doesn't have to be mom, because not all girls have a mom in that role for them. So it's that significant person or caretaker for that girl. But they come together so they can hear it together, and then they can talk about it together, because it does open up a lot of those doors for questions and communications after the class. They hear it all the same.
It's so important. That Growing Up for Girls class starts between age 9 and 12, and then there's a second class called The Talk that somebody else teaches 12 to 15. A lot of great resources available at the Parenting Center. Debbie, thank you so much for being here,
welcome.
darling. And look,
Thank
if you
you.
all want more information about those classes, log on to manningchildrens.org or follow them on social media. Now look, coming up after the break, you think we're just going to talk about the girls? No. We're talking puberty in boys right after the break. Don't move.